Arsenal fans seem to think it is. We seem to think that the Chelsea or the City model is the feasible model. It's not. It's infeasible for all the other clubs.
Exactly.
And we have a problem because where are these players coming from? You know, we're going to end up, I believe, outside of the European places this year, which will affect our ability to attract players. Our finances affect our abilities to attract players relative to what the fan base thinks we should be doing. Our fan base really thinks we have the right to go out in the world and buy the best players in the positions that we need, when, of course, we haven't. And if you go back a few years, remember the big talking point, and it always comes up, that Arsene Wenger changed. He stopped buying players, powerful, strong players like Vieira and Gilberto, and went to small, diminutive players like Rosicky and Santi and Arshavin.
And Cesc.
And Cesc. And they put it in a way that he did, as if he did that by choice. You know, that he chose to change the team. Trust me, if Arsene Wenger could ever have bought a player to replace Patrick Vieira that would have been like Patrick Vieira, he would have bought him.
Yes.
But he couldn't, because there were other teams buying those players instead. So what he had to do was go elsewhere and look for another way to do it, because those players were no longer available to Arsenal.
You remember, just on that note, George, you remember Michael Essien? Michael Essien was on our radar, you know.
That's right.
And Chelsea
he
blew.
Would have bought him.
Yes,
he would have bought him.
You almost bought him. And Chelsea blew us out of the water with his wage offer. Apparently it was the wages that tilted the scales. It's humongous, and we couldn't afford it. I don't know about his transfer fee was also in those days was 20-something million, which in those days was a lot of money. But his wages.
Yeah. This is, but it's my point is, it wasn't a choice. It was Arsene made a decision that it was better to have top-class players technically than second-class players physically, because he could no longer get the top-class physical players that could also play technically. Those players were out of our price range. Well, they're still out of our price range now. And this is the problem. People think they aren't, and they are. Because any top player is not coming to Arsenal, because we can't afford them, and they'd rather go somewhere else where there's more chance of winning trophies and getting bigger wages. So you just got, until the fan base accepts that, it's not a choice not to buy the best players in the world. We're not, Mikel Arteta, Arsene Wenger before him, are not choosing not to buy top players. They're not able to buy top players.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I can't afford a Rolls Royce. I can't afford a Benz. You know, it's just but George,
that's right. It's not that you would rather buy a Lada than a Rolls Royce, is it?
Yes.
You know, you're forced into the position where that's all you can afford. You know, I've just bought a new Fiat 500. Honestly, I love the little thing, but if I had a house where I could have a big driveway and 2 or 3 garages, I'd have a Ferrari. I would not chosen to buy a fucking Fiat instead of a Ferrari. You live to your means, and Arsenal fans have to accept that our means that we cannot buy top players. And the other thing is, they say, "Oh well, buy up and coming players," you know, and then they'll give you examples that other clubs have done. You know, Mahrez and Kante at Leicester, and Mane and Sane, and you know they'll name all these players that people have spent big money on, not massive, but they've gone on to be world-class players. And they will never mention the hundreds of other players that have been bought as prospects and come to nothing, because they only remember the successes. And if you're doing that model, if you're trying to buy players with potential, you're going to make a lot of mistakes in the market. And we can't afford to do that either.
Nice. That's right,
You know,
George.
look,
George, speaking of delusions, finally. So now, George, it seems to me that people are having grand ambitions at this point. You know, we have had a very good upturn since December, but I just saw Aubameyang make a tweet. In the past 9 league matches, 3 wins, 3 losses, 3 draws. You know, that is not the sign of a team that is marching triumphantly onto greater heights. So, George, what are our chances of top 8, top 6, or top 4 at this point? What do you rate top 8 first?
Well, when you say top 8,
you have
we might get 8th. That'll be it. That's it for me. We're not getting better than 8th.
What's your chances of us getting there, in your opinion?
I would say 70-30 against.
You know you have Everton and Liverpool ahead of us right now.
Yeah, that's right. We're not catching them.
They are ahead of us in that fight.
They're ahead of us. And they'll
you're giving us a 75%.
And Tottenham are ahead of us.
Oh, well,
as bad as they are, they're 7 points ahead of us, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And Mourinho has, you know, he's being paid $20 million to get them in the top 4. I don't know how much pounds that is, but he's being paid a hell of a wage to get them back in the top 4. So you're saying a what percentage to be top 8, George?
30%.
30%. 30%. You and I before this, I was way off, but I agree with you on that. Barely 30%. Maybe Everton might stumble. Liverpool is going to fight for its life. Pride alone. Top 6, George.
0%.
I agree with you 100% on that. So, George, you know, and obviously top 4 is negative 50%. George, I don't know. People are going to say we are pessimistic, but you know.
But Shotta,
yes.
It won't upset me between now and the end of the season.
9 more games to go, George. By the way,
we're going to come 9th.
Yes.
I think we'll come 9th or 8th. I won't cry about it watching every game, thinking, just play good football, just progress, just let us see that next year we might have an improvement, and I'll be happy, you know. But as things stand, we're here for a reason. We've been pretty crap,
especially in those first 15 games.
You know, and people can make all the excuses in the world. The sad reality is, with our squad, even though the squad isn't as good as it was with Mesut Ozil, I don't think, we should have been much higher. We should be much higher with the quality of players that we have. Mistakes aside, even if we bought badly, we bought Willian. We shouldn't have bought Willian. We paid 73 million on Pepe. We shouldn't have done that. We're giving Aubameyang a huge, great big contract. We shouldn't have done that. But having done all those things, regardless of that, with those players, we're still much better than 9th.
I agree with you. I mean, I've always said we're a top 6 side.
Absolutely we're a top 6 side. I don't think we're a top 4 side anymore, but I think we're a top 6 side.
Well, on that note, George, we have the interlude breaking coming up. I am trying to organize something in between. Hopefully it will come off. But on that note, let us bring this to a halt. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you and goodbye.
All righty, George. That is it. This concludes another edition of the Positively Uncensored Arsenal podcast. Show your appreciation of our podcast by subscribing and clicking the like button wherever you listen.
This really helps in growing our support among honest and biased fans who recognize that Wenger's legacy is fundamental. Free-flowing attacking football by a club with integrity and class. Thanks for listening.